Cabinet Secretary, when will 801 be in service? Not when will it be handed over? When will it be in service on CALMAC, with CALMAC?
So obviously the Chief Executive of Ferguson Marine is due to give an update to this committee at the end of September around the costs and the timeline that has had an impact, largely but not exclusively due to the MCA taking a different approach in terms of its regulation on crew escape from 801. And there's been a number of areas of change to the original design that have been required. So obviously the conversations that I have with the management at Ferguson Marine, as do my colleagues, including Vicky in the civil service, are around making sure that the ferries are delivered as quickly as possible and without any undue cost overrun. Not least because our island communities need and deserve these ferries to be running as quickly as possible. I appreciate that, Cabinet Secretary, but it was a direct question. When will it be in service with CALMAC? Now, it doesn't need David Tydeman to come to this committee and tell us. You're in charge of Ferguson Marine. You must know. I'm asking you a question. When will it be in service with CALMAC? And with due respect, Convener, I did give that answer, that Mr Tydeman will be giving the committee an update, and that's got to be based on decisions that are still to be taken by the MCA as to whether or not the mitigations that are going to be taken on the design of the ferry are going to be appropriate for the MCA to pass those ferries as being safe to operate. So these are discussions that are ongoing, which is why I cannot give a date.
So he hasn't told you a date?
Well, because the discussions with the MCA are still ongoing with respect, Convener. That's why ensuring that Mr Tydeman has the opportunity to be able to give the committee and myself that update on the conclusion of those, which I hope will be a positive conclusion of those discussions with the MCA. I can't give an update until those discussions are concluded. I think that's pretty clear.
I think it's really bizarre that we started with a delivery date in autumn. I understand, and we'll come to the MCA changeover or perceived MCA changeover of regulations, that we were told autumn. Then we were told by Mr Tydeman in the update that was written to us that it might be spring next year. You must have had these discussions. I'm asking you a straightforward question because islanders are asking everyone a question. When is it going to be? And it doesn't appear you can answer me.
Well, no, because with respect, it's not just a minor thing, the MCA's decision-making on the safety of crew escapes from the ships. This is pretty fundamental to whether or not the design of the ferry allows it to sail. It's not an inconsequential matter. And so I hope, obviously, that the last update in terms of spring can be met. But until those discussions with the MCA are concluded, I cannot give any further definitive update. I think it would be unfair. I think it would be unfair to suggest that the MCA's decision-making is anything other than critical to the delivery of these ferries.
So we've got a hope for spring, and we're still hoping for autumn next year for 802.
Absolutely. I'm wanting these ferries delivered as quickly as possible. I was born in an island community. I continue to have family living in an island community. I know how critical having ferries and lifeline operations are to people living in these communities and for those businesses that are operating in these communities as well. I fully understand and appreciate that. That is why we've been pushing as hard as possible for these to be built as quickly as possible. To be fair, the MCA are a regulator. It would be inappropriate for me to try to intervene on the MCA's decision-making. That is for, those discussions are for the Ferguson Marine and the MCA to carry out, and for those mitigations to the design of the ferries to be brought up to what the MCA is now expecting. And I hope that that can be completed as quickly as possible for all the reasons that I've already set out, Convener.
So the MCA, when they looked at the ferries, said that the requirements for the safety stairwells for crew exit weren't sufficient. You would have asked, I'm sure as I would have asked, when the MCA, or what ruling or what regulation the MCA was basing that comment on. Do you know what regulation it was and what year it came into effect?
So I'll need to reply in writing to provide full clarity on that for you, convener. It would be, but I think it would also be appropriate for me to say it's not appropriate for me to be intervening in the decision making of the MCA nor the negotiations between Ferguson Marine and the MCA. There was a change in the application of what the MCA were expecting in terms of the crew escapes, as opposed to the previous expectation was that this would be based on cargo escape regulations as opposed to passenger. That is for the MCA to determine. I respect that process. That has meant that there is a need for changes to the design of those ferries and the ensuring that design meets with the satisfaction of the MCA to ensure that it is safe to operate is what is currently, those discussions are currently ongoing with Ferguson Marine and the MCA, and I would support both in arriving at a conclusion as quickly as possible.
So would you accept that the MCA was brought in early enough so that there wouldn't have been this issue when it came to effect? Because my understanding is the regulations that the MCA are relying on date back to pre-2020, and therefore my problem is that nothing's changed since 2020 in those regulations. It's just that the ferries don't meet the requirements that could have been consulted on with the MCA earlier. When were they first brought in to discuss this? Was it just when you thought, or when Ferguson Marine thought it was ready to be launched?
I'll provide detail on that in writing in consultation with David Tydeman, convener. My understanding is that there's been ongoing discussions on all aspects of the 801 and 802 with the MCA over a long period of time, but I'll make sure I have the full detail and clarity for you in writing.
It would be helpful if you could clarify whether this came out of the blue, was something that had never been discussed before and was not based on a regulation that predated 2020. So that would be one.
I'm not looking to point any fingers. Obviously, I am fully respectful of the fact that the MCA have a job to do in making sure that the ferries that they need to sign off are operationally safe. But I'll make sure I furnish you with the further information and do so as quickly as we can.